Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed over another pile of twisted metal. The twin suns of Kepler 442b beat down mercilessly on the vast junkyard that stretched as far as the eye could see. Broken ships, discarded machinery, and countless pieces of scrap metal created a maze of rust and debris. This wasteland had been his workplace for 3 years now, ever since he lost his job at the mining facility. Every day was the same routine. Wake up in his cramped shelter, grab his tools, and search through the endless piles of junk for anything valuable enough to trade for food and water. The work was hard and dangerous, but it kept him alive on this forgotten planet at the edge of human space. Jake kicked at a piece of corroded piping and watched it roll down the metal hill. He was 26 years old, but the harsh conditions had aged him beyond his years. His hands were calloused from handling sharp metal, and his clothes were patched and worn. Like most people on Kepler 442b, he was just trying to survive one day at a time. The eastern section of the junkyard was mostly unexplored. Most scrappers avoided it because the piles were unstable and dangerous to climb. But Jake was running out of options. He had not found anything valuable in weeks, and his food supplies were getting low. The trading post would not give him credit anymore, and winter was coming. On this planet, winter meant freezing temperatures that could kill anyone without proper shelter and heating. As he made his way deeper into the eastern section, Jake noticed something strange. The metal here looked different from the usual scrap. It was cleaner, less corroded, and some pieces had markings he did not recognize. He had been a scrapper long enough to know that unusual items often meant valuable items. Jake climbed carefully up a particularly tall pile of debris. The metal groaned under his weight, but it held. At the top, he could see for miles in every direction. The junkyard looked like an ocean of metal waves, with the occasional scavenger bird circling overhead. In the distance, he could see the small settlement where he lived, just a cluster of prefab buildings and dome shelters. Something caught his eye about halfway down the other side of the pile. It was partially buried under a sheet of hull plating, but he could see the edge of something that did not belong with the rest of the junk. The surface was smooth and dark, almost like black glass. Jake had never seen anything like it in all his years of scrapping. He made his way down carefully, testing each step before putting his full weight on it. The pile shifted and settled as he moved, sending small avalanches of metal pieces tumbling down. When he reached the buried object, Jake used his crowbar to pry away the hull plating that covered it. What he found underneath made him stop breathing for a moment. It was a suit of armor, but unlike anything he had ever seen. The material looked almost alive, with a surface that seemed to shift and change in the light. It was clearly human-sized, but the design was far more advanced than anything the colonial military used. The armor was complete, from helmet to boots, and it appeared to be in perfect condition. Jake looked around nervously. Finding something like this was like winning the lottery, but it also meant danger. Valuable items in the junkyard usually belonged to someone, and that someone was often not the kind of person you wanted to meet in a dark alley. He reached out to touch the armor's surface. It felt warm under his fingers, which was strange because everything else in the junkyard was cold. The material was smooth, but not slippery, and it seemed to respond to his touch somehow. Jake had heard stories about alien technology that could interface with humans, but he had always thought they were just rumors. As he ran his hands over the armor, Jake noticed that it bore no identifying marks or unit insignia. There were no scratches, dents, or battle damage that he could see. It was as if the armor had been placed there recently, waiting for someone to find it. The thought made him shiver, but his desperation was stronger than his fear. Jake began to carefully extract the armor from its hiding place. It was heavier than he expected, but not impossibly so. As he lifted the chest piece, He noticed connection points and interfaces that suggested the armor was designed to work as a complete system. This was not just protective gear. It was some kind of advanced combat suit. The more he examined the armor, the more excited he became. This could be his ticket off Kepler 442b. Advanced military hardware was worth a fortune on the black market, and this looked like it came from somewhere far beyond the outer colonies. He could sell it and buy passage to a better world, maybe. Even get his sister Kate off this rock. Jake was so focused on the armor that he did not hear the footsteps approaching from behind. It was not until a shadow fell across him that he realized he was no longer alone. Put it back, or you're next. The voice was deep and rough, like gravel grinding together. Jake froze, his hands still gripping the armor's chest piece. Slowly, he turned around to face whoever had spoken. The man standing behind him looked like he had stepped out of a war zone. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and scars that crisscrossed his face and arms. His clothes were military style, but worn and patched. Most importantly, he had a plasma rifle pointed directly at Jake's chest. "I said put it back," the man repeated. His eyes were cold and hard, the eyes of someone who had killed before and would not hesitate to do it again. Jake's mind raced. He could drop the armor and run, but he would be back to starving in a matter of days. He could try to fight, but the man with the rifle looked like he could break Jake in half without even using his weapon. Or he could try to talk his way out of this. "Look, mister, I don't want any trouble," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm just trying to make a living here. I didn't know this belonged to anyone." The man stepped closer, and Jake could see the name tag on his shirt, Bishop. "That armor has been nothing but death and trouble for everyone who's touched it. You don't want what comes with it, boy. Trust me on that." "Death and trouble is what I've got already," Jake replied, surprising himself with his boldness. "I'm starving on this rock, and winter's coming. This armor could change everything for me." Bishop's expression softened slightly, but the rifle did not waver. "You think you're the first desperate fool to find that thing? 3 men have died trying to claim it. The armor's cursed, and everyone who puts it on ends up dead or worse." Jake looked down at the armor in his hands. It still felt warm, and he could swear he felt a slight vibration, like a heartbeat. Whatever this thing was, it was definitely not normal military equipment. But normal equipment would not get him off this planet either. Whose armor is it? Jake asked. Bishop was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, almost sad. "It belonged to my partner. She died wearing it, and it should have stayed buried with her." Jake saw something in the older man's eyes then. Pain, loss, and regret. This was not just about valuable armor. It was personal. But Jake's desperation was stronger than his sympathy. "I'm sorry for your loss," Jake said carefully, "but I can't put it back. I won't survive another winter here, and this is my only chance." Bishop raised the rifle to his shoulder, sighting down the barrel at Jake's head. "Then you're going to die right here, right now." Time seemed to slow down as Jake stared down the barrel of the plasma rifle. He could see Bishop's finger tightening on the trigger, and he knew the older man was not bluffing. In that moment, Jake made a decision that would change his life forever. Instead of dropping the armor, he pulled it closer to his chest and rolled sideways behind a pile of scrap metal just as Bishop fired. The plasma bolt sizzled through the air where Jake had been standing just moments before. He hit the ground hard, the armor pieces scattering around him as he rolled behind a twisted piece of ship hull. His heart was pounding so loud, he was sure Bishop could hear it from across the junkyard. "You just made the worst mistake of your life, boy," Bishop called out, his voice echoing off the metal hills around them. Jake grabbed the helmet and chest piece of the armor and crawled deeper into the maze of scrap metal. He could hear Bishop's heavy boots crunching on debris as the older man moved to get a better angle for his next shot. Jake knew he had maybe 30 seconds before Bishop found him. The armor felt strange in his hands, almost like it was trying to tell him something. The surface was warming up, and he could feel a faint humming vibration coming from inside it. Without really thinking about why, Jake pulled the chest piece over his head and slipped his arms into it. The moment the armor made contact with his skin, everything changed. A surge of energy ran through Jake's body, and suddenly his vision was filled with glowing displays and readouts. The armor was talking to him, not with words, but with information that appeared directly in his mind. He could see his heart rate, body temperature, and dozens of other readings he did not understand. Warning, armor integration at 15%, a voice said inside his head. It was a woman's voice, calm and professional. Neural interface. Establishing connection. Jake nearly jumped out of his skin. The voice was so clear, it was like someone was standing right next to him. But he knew he was alone behind the scrap pile. "What the hell?" he whispered. "Hostile detected," the voice continued. "Recommend immediate tactical withdrawal." Another plasma bolt hit the metal near Jake's hiding spot, sending sparks flying. He grabbed the rest of the armor pieces and ran deeper into the junkyard, moving faster than he had ever moved before. Somehow, his legs felt stronger, and his balance was perfect, even on the uneven ground. "Integration at 30%, the voice reported. "Motor function enhancement active." Jake found a deep crevice between two collapsed ship hulls and squeezed inside. He was breathing hard, but he felt more alive than he had in years. The armor seemed to be doing something to his body, making him faster and stronger. "Who are you?" Jake whispered to the voice. "I am Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, United Earth Defense Force. Serial number 7749 Delta. I am the integrated artificial intelligence system for this combat armor unit." Jake's hands shook as he tried to process what he was hearing. "You're dead, aren't you?" Bishop said his partner died. "Correct. My physical form was terminated during combat operations on Proxima Centauri 3 years ago. However, my consciousness was preserved within the armor's neural metrics to assist future operators." "You're a ghost in the machine," Jake said, trying to make sense of it all. "That is an acceptable description. The armor requires a human operator to function at full capacity. You have been selected as my new partner." Jake heard Bishop's voice calling out from somewhere nearby. "I know you're in there, kid. That armor's going to get you killed, just like it killed her. Come out now, and I'll make it quick." Integration at 45%, Rodriguez reported. "Stealth systems coming online. Recommend activating camouflage protocols." Jake felt a tingling sensation across his body, and when he looked down, he could barely see his own hands. The armor was making him nearly invisible. "How is this possible?" he asked. "The armor incorporates technology recovered from multiple alien sources during the Proxima War. Human engineering combined it with captured hegemony stealth generators and neural interface systems." Hegemony? A coalition of alien species that considers humanity a threat to galactic stability. The war has been ongoing for 5 years, though most outer colonies remain unaware of the conflict. Jake's mind was reeling. An alien war that he had never heard of, advanced technology beyond anything he could imagine, and now he was apparently bonded to the consciousness of a dead soldier. A week ago, his biggest worry had been finding enough scrap metal to trade. "For dinner. Why me?" he asked. "The armor's selection process is based on neural compatibility and psychological profile. You possess the necessary mental flexibility and survival instincts to serve as an effective operator." Bishop's footsteps were getting closer. Jake could see him through a gap in the metal, moving carefully and checking every possible hiding. Spot, the older man's rifle was ready, and his eyes were constantly scanning for any sign of movement. Integration at 60%, Rodriguez announced. Full mobility suite available. Recommend tactical relocation. Jake felt the armor systems fully connect with his nervous system. Information flowed into his mind about Bishop's position, movement patterns, and weapon capabilities. The armor was analyzing everything and giving him tactical options. I can't fight him, Jake whispered. I'm not a soldier. Negative. Combat engagement not recommended against Colonel Bishop. He is a highly experienced warrior with extensive knowledge of this armor's capabilities. Colonel? You mean he's military? 2. Affirmative. Colonel Cole Bishop was my commanding officer, and Jake Martinez was my mission partner during the Proxima campaign. He is attempting to recover the armor to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold metal around him. So he's not trying to kill me for money. He thinks I'm some kind of threat. Correct. The armor contains classified tactical data and advanced technology that could alter the balance of the ongoing war. Colonel Bishop considers any unauthorized operator to be a security risk, but you chose me, right? Doesn't that count for something? The armor's bonding process is irreversible once integration exceeds 50%. Colonel Bishop is aware of this limitation. Jake realized what that meant. Even if he wanted to give up the armor now, he could not. It was becoming part of him, and there was no going back. Integration at 75%, Rodriguez reported. Enhanced reflexes and strength now available. Warning: prolonged separation from remaining armor components will result in system instability. Jake looked at the leg and arm pieces he had dropped during his escape. They were back where Bishop was searching, and he needed them to complete the armor system. But going back would mean walking into a trap. There has to be another way, he said. Analyzing alternatives, Rodriguez replied. After a moment, she continued. Recommendation: attempt communication with Colonel Bishop. Explain the irreversible nature of the bonding process. You think he'll listen? Colonel Bishop is a rational tactical commander. When presented with facts, he will adapt his strategy accordingly. Jake was not so sure about that. The man had tried to kill him twice already, but he was running out of options, and he needed those armor pieces if he was going to survive. Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped out from his hiding place. The camouflage system made him nearly invisible, but he knew Bishop would spot him eventually. The older man was too experienced to miss much. Colonel Bishop, Jake called out, using the military rank Rodriguez had mentioned. Bishop spun around, rifle raised, but he could not see exactly where Jake was standing. Show yourself, boy. Number. Point in hiding. Jake deactivated the camouflage system and appeared about 20 feet away from Bishop. The older man immediately aimed at him, but he did not fire. The armor chose me, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Youre, I told me the bonding process can't be reversed. Bishop's expression changed from anger to something that looked almost like grief. Amy's still in there? She says her name is Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. She says you were her commanding officer. Bishop lowered his rifle slightly. Prove it. Tell me something only Amy would know. Jake felt Rodriguez accessing memories that were not his own. Information flowed into his mind, personal details about the relationship between the two soldiers. She says you have a scar on your left shoulder from the battle at Kepler Station. She also says you still carry the lucky coin she gave you before your first mission together. Bishop's face went pale. His hand moved unconsciously to his left shoulder, and Jake could see him fighting back emotions. She's really gone, isn't she? Bishop said quietly. Her body is gone, Jake replied, feeling Rodriguez guide his words. But her mind, her memories, her knowledge, It's all still here. She's still fighting the war, just in a different way. Bishop was quiet for a long moment, staring at Jake with a mixture of pain and resignation. Finally, he lowered his rifle completely. The armor's bonded to you permanently? That's what she says. Integration at 75% and rising. Bishop shook his head slowly. Then God help us all. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, kid. 2 weeks had passed since Jake's first encounter with Bishop in the junkyard. The older soldier had reluctantly agreed to help train Jake, but their relationship was still tense. Every morning, they met at an abandoned mining facility on the outskirts of the settlement, where Bishop put Jake through grueling exercises designed to help him master the armor systems. Your stance is wrong, Bishop said, watching Jake practice with the armor's targeting system. Amy never had trouble with basic shooting positions. Jake adjusted his feet and raised the armor's built-in energy weapon again. The targeting display. In his vision highlighted 3 practice targets Bishop had set up across the empty mining pit. Jake squeezed the trigger, and blue energy bolts struck 2 of the 3 targets. Better, Bishop admitted grudgingly. But in a real fight, that missed shot gets you killed. Integration at 92%, Rodriguez reported in Jake's mind. Neural pathways fully established. Combat effectiveness approaching optimal levels. Jake had grown used to Rodriguez's constant commentary over the past 2 weeks. At first, having someone else's voice in his head had been disturbing, but now it felt natural. Rodriguez had become his guide, teacher, and in many ways, his friend. Amy's talking to you again, isn't she? Bishop asked, noticing Jake's distant expression. She says we're almost at full integration, Jake replied. Whatever that means. Bishop's face darkened. It means you're no longer just wearing the armor. You're becoming part of it, and it's becoming part of you. There's no going back now, kid. Jake had learned not to ask Bishop too many questions about his past with Rodriguez. The older man clearly still grieved for his fallen partner, and talking about her was painful for him. But Jake was curious about the war Rodriguez had mentioned, the conflict with the alien hegemony that most people seemed to know nothing about. Why don't people know about the war? Jake asked as they walked back toward the settlement. Because the government wants it that way, Bishop replied. Panic is bad for business. The outer colonies keep sending resources to Earth, and Earth keeps pretending everything is fine. Meanwhile, good soldiers die fighting an enemy most people don't even know exists. But you're not fighting anymore. Bishop stopped walking and turned to face Jake. I tried to quit after Amy died. Figured I'd done my part, lost enough friends. But the war doesn't care what I want. And now it's found you. Jake was about to ask what Bishop meant when Rodriguez's voice filled his mind with urgent warnings. Alert. Multiple spacecraft approaching from orbit. Configuration matches Hegemony Hunter-Killer Squadron. Recommend immediate defensive measures. Jake looked up at the sky. He could see small dots of light moving across the afternoon sky, growing larger by the second. They were definitely spacecraft, and they were heading straight for the settlement. Bishop, Jake said, pointing upward. The older man followed Jake's gaze and immediately reached for his rifle. Damn, they found us faster than I expected. Who found us? The Hegemony. They've been tracking that armor ever since Amy first put it on. Now they know you have it. The spacecraft were close enough now that Jake could make out their alien design. They looked like nothing he had ever seen, with smooth curves and no visible engines. 3 of them broke off from the main group and headed toward the mining station where Jake worked, while the others continued toward the main settlement. We have to warn people, Jake said, starting to run toward town. No time, Bishop replied, grabbing Jake's arm. Those ships are targeting the mining station. Your sister works there, doesn't she? Jake's blood went cold. Kate had taken a job at the mining station 3 months ago. It was dangerous work, but it paid better than anything else available on Kepler 442b. If the aliens were attacking the station, she was in immediate danger. Combat protocols activated, Rodriguez announced. All systems online, ready for engagement. Jake felt the armor systems surge to full power. His vision filled with tactical displays showing the approaching alien ships, their probable weapons capabilities, and suggested attack patterns. For the first time since putting on the armor, Jake felt like he truly understood what it was designed to do. "I'm going to the mining station," Jake said, and he started running before Bishop could stop him. The armor enhanced Jake's speed and endurance far beyond normal human limits. He covered the 3 miles to the mining station in less than 10 minutes, arriving just as the alien ships began their attack. The first energy blast struck the main processing building, sending flames and debris flying in all directions. Jake could see people running from the buildings, workers in mining gear scrambling for cover as the alien ships circled overhead. Like predators, one of the ships was focusing its fire on the administration building, where the miners received their assignments each morning. "Kate," Jake whispered, remembering that his sister usually worked the morning shift in that building. "Target priorities established," Rodriguez said. "Recommend engaging lead attack craft first. Weapon systems armed and ready." Jake raised his arm and activated the armor's energy weapon. The targeting system locked onto the lead alien ship, and Jake fired. The blue energy bolt struck the ship's hull, causing it to wobble in the air, but it did not go down. The alien ship immediately changed course and headed straight for Jake. Now he had their attention. "Incoming fire," Rodriguez warned. "Evasive. Maneuvers recommended." Jake threw himself sideways, just as an alien energy blast scorched the ground where he had been standing. The armor's enhanced reflexes allowed him to roll smoothly and come up firing. This time, his shot hit something vital, and the alien ship exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The other 2 ships immediately focused their attention on Jake. Energy blasts filled the air around him as he ran between the mining buildings, using them for cover. The armor systems were tracking both ships, giving him information about their positions and likely attack patterns. "Second target locked," Rodriguez reported. "Firing solution optimal." Jake spotted one of the ships through a gap between buildings and fired 3 quick shots. The first 2 missed, but the third struck the ship's engine section. The alien craft spun out of control and crashed into a pile of mining equipment. Third ship was more cautious now. It hung back, circling at a distance while its pilot tried to figure out what kind of weapon Jake was using. Jake could see people still running from the buildings, and he realized that some of them might be injured or trapped. "I need to help the injured," Jake said. "Negative," Rodriguez replied. "Hostiles still active. Mission priority is elimination of threats." "These are my people," Jake said firmly. "My sister might be in there." Jake ran toward the administration building, keeping low to avoid the alien ship's sensors. The building had taken several direct hits, and part of the roof had collapsed. Jake could hear voices calling for help from inside. "Jake! Jake, over here!" It was Kate's voice. Jake felt a surge of relief as he saw his sister waving at him from behind an overturned desk. She was covered in dust and had a cut on her forehead. But she was alive. "Stay down," Jake called out. "I'm going to get you out of there." The alien ship had spotted Jake's movement and was swooping down for another attack. Jake stepped out into the open, making himself a target to draw the ship away from the building where Kate and the other workers were trapped. "Come on," Jake shouted at the alien pilot. "You want me? Here I am." The ship fired, and Jake dodged. The energy blast struck the ground behind him, creating a crater the size of a small car. Jake fired back, but the alien pilot was ready for him this time, and evaded his shot. Target maneuvering unpredictably, Rodriguez reported. Suggest alternative tactics. Jake had an idea. He ran toward the main mining pit, the alien ship following and firing at him. The pit was deep and wide, filled with mining equipment and partially excavated ore deposits. Jake reached the edge and jumped. The armor systems automatically adjusted for the fall, allowing Jake to land safely at the bottom of the pit. The alien ship followed him down, trying to get a clear shot. But the pilot had made a mistake. The pit was narrow enough that the ship had limited room to maneuver. Jake waited until the ship was committed to its attack run and fired at the pit wall above it. His energy blast brought down tons of rock and debris, crushing the alien craft. Silence fell over the mining station. Jake climbed out of the pit and ran back to the administration building where Kate was waiting with the other survivors. "Are you hurt?" he asked, checking his sister for injuries. "I'm okay," Kate replied, but she was staring at him with wide eyes. "Jake, what are you wearing? And how did you do all that?" Before Jake could answer, Bishop arrived with a group of armed colonists. The older soldier looked around at the destroyed alien ships and the damage to the mining station. "This is just the beginning," Bishop said grimly. "They know where you are now. More ships will come, and they'll bring bigger guns next time. What do we do?" Jake asked. "We run," Bishop replied. "Pack light and move fast. The whole settlement needs to evacuate before the main hegemony fleet arrives." "Fleet?" Kate asked, fear creeping into her voice. Bishop nodded. "They don't send just 3 ships for something this important. The armor you're wearing represents technology that could change the entire war. They'll send everything they have to get it back or destroy it." The Resistance shuttle arrived exactly 30 minutes later, landing in a cloud of dust near the damaged mining station. Jake watched as armed soldiers poured out of the craft, their weapons ready and their eyes scanning for threats. They moved like professionals, covering each other and establishing a defensive perimeter around the landing zone. Captain Lisa Grant was the last person to exit the shuttle. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and the kind of scars that came from years of combat. Her uniform was clean but well worn, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had survived many battles. "You must be Jake Martinez," she said, walking directly toward him. "That armor looks good on you." Jake felt uncomfortable under her intense gaze. "How do you know about the armor?" "We've been tracking it for 3 years," Grant replied. "Ever since Lieutenant Rodriguez went missing during the Proxima operation. We hoped she had escaped, but when her signal went dark, we assumed the worst." "She didn't escape," Bishop said, joining the conversation. "She died saving my worthless life." Grant turned to look at Bishop, and Jake could see recognition in her eyes. "Colonel Bishop, I heard you had gone into hiding after Proxima." "I tried to quit the war," Bishop replied. "But it seems the war isn't done with me." "It's not done with any of us," Grant said. "The hegemony is winning, Bishop. We're losing ground on every front. Earth Command pretends everything is under control, but the outer colonies are falling one by one." Jake listened to their conversation with growing unease. The more he learned about this war, the worse it sounded. And now he was apparently right in the middle of it. Why is this armor so important? Jake asked. Grant and Bishop exchanged glances. "Show him," Grant said to Bishop. Bishop sighed. "Amy and I weren't just soldiers, kid. We were part of a special research team. Our job was to investigate ancient ruins scattered throughout human space." "What kind of ruins?" "The kind that don't belong to any known alien species," Grant replied. "Including humans." Jake felt Rodriguez stir in his mind. The AI had been unusually quiet since the attack, but now she seemed to be accessing deep memory files. Integration complete, Rodriguez announced. Full historical database now available. Revealing classified information to current operator. Suddenly, Jake's vision filled with images and data that were not his own. He saw ancient stone structures on distant worlds, strange symbols carved into walls, and technology that looked both alien and somehow familiar. "What am I seeing?" Jake asked. "The truth," Rodriguez replied in his mind. "The truth about human origins." Grant was watching Jake's face carefully. "The armor's showing you the files, isn't it?" Jake nodded, still processing the flood of information. "These ruins ... they're human, aren't they? But they're thousands of years old." "Try millions of years old," Bishop said grimly. "Turns out humanity didn't start on Earth like we thought. We're descendants of an ancient spacefaring civilization that the hegemony destroyed long ago." The images in Jake's mind showed massive battles between human ships and alien fleets. He saw entire worlds burning and populations fleeing to the stars. The final image showed a small group of human ships escaping to a distant blue world, Earth. "The hegemony has been hunting down the survivors ever since," Grant explained. "Every time humans start to rebuild and spread to the stars, they show up to finish what they started millions of years ago." Jake felt sick. "So this war isn't about territory or resources, it's genocide." "Exactly," Grant said. "And that armor contains proof of everything I just told you. The location of the original human homeworld, records of our true history, and most importantly, the location of other hidden outposts that might still contain advanced human technology. That's why they want it so badly," Bishop added. "And that's why we can't let them have it." Kate had been listening to the conversation with growing alarm. "Jake, this is crazy. You're talking about ancient aliens and million-year-old wars. It sounds like science fiction." "I wish it was," Jake replied. "But the proof is right here in my head." One of Grant's soldiers approached and saluted. "Captain, our scouts report multiple hegemony ships approaching from the outer system. We have maybe 6 hours before they arrive in force." Grant nodded. "And we need to move fast." "Jake, there's something else you need to know. The armor isn't just a repository of information. It's a key. A key to what?" "To the main human outpost," Rodriguez said in Jake's mind. "The primary research facility that contains our species' most advanced technology." "Where is this outpost?" Jake asked. Grant smiled for the first time since arriving. "That's the beautiful part. It's here, on Kepler 442b, hidden beneath this entire junkyard." Jake stared at her in disbelief. "You're telling me I've been living on top of an ancient human base for 3 years?" "The junkyard wasn't random," Bishop explained. "Ships have been crashing here for decades because there's some kind of interference field generated by the outpost. The crashes provided perfect cover for the facility. But why hasn't anyone found it before?" "Because it requires the armor to access," Grant replied. "Specifically, it requires an operator who has achieved full neural integration with the armor's systems, like you." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Everyone was looking at him expectantly, waiting for him to make a decision that could affect the entire human race. "What if I can't do it?" Jake asked. "What if I'm not the right person for this?" "You are the right person," Rodriguez said firmly. In his mind, "The armor chose you, Jake. It bonded with you because you have the strength and determination to complete this mission." "She's right," Bishop said quietly. "Amy always was a good judge of character. If she thinks you can handle this, then you can." Grant activated a portable holographic display showing the junkyard from above. "Our geological scans show the entrance is approximately 2 miles northeast of here, buried under what looks like a crashed cargo hauler." "That's near where I found the armor," Jake realized. "Not a coincidence," Grant replied. The armor was placed there as a marker, waiting for someone worthy to find it. One of Grant's soldiers ran up to the group. "Captain, we're picking up transmissions from the approaching hegemony fleet. They're demanding the immediate surrender of what they call the human weapon. How long do we have?" Grant asked. 4 hours, maybe less. Grant turned back to Jake. "We need to get to that outpost now. Once you activate it, we'll have access to weapons and defenses that can hold off the hegemony fleet. And if I can't activate it, then we all die, and humanity loses its last chance to turn the tide of this war," Grant said bluntly. Jake looked around at the faces surrounding him. His sister Kate, terrified but trying to be brave. Bishop, carrying the guilt of his fallen partner. Grant and her soldiers, ready to die for a cause they believed in. And in his mind, Rodriguez, the spirit of a dead hero who had given everything for humanity's survival. "Okay," Jake said finally. "Let's go find this outpost." The journey to the northeast section of the junkyard took an hour through the maze of twisted metal and debris. Grant's soldiers moved in formation around Jake, watching for any sign of hegemony scouts or advance forces. The tension was thick, enough to cut with a knife. When they reached the crashed cargo hauler, Jake could immediately see that it was different from the other wreckage. The metal was cleaner, less corroded, and there were subtle markings that his enhanced vision could now recognize as human script. "This is it," Rodriguez confirmed in his mind. "I can sense the outpost systems responding to my presence." Jake approached the hull of the crashed ship and placed his armored hand on its surface. Immediately, the metal began to glow with a soft blue light. Ancient mechanisms hummed to life, and a section of the ship's hull slid aside to reveal a tunnel leading deep underground. "Welcome home," Rodriguez whispered in Jake's mind as they descended into the tunnel. Jake realized that everything in his life had led to this moment. The years of scrapping in the junkyard, finding the armor, meeting Bishop, and now discovering the truth about humanity's past. He was no longer just Jake Martinez, the desperate scrapper trying to survive on a forgotten world. He was humanity's last hope. The tunnel led deep underground, far deeper than Jake had ever imagined possible. The walls were made of a smooth, dark material that seemed to absorb light, and strange symbols glowed softly along the ceiling, providing just enough illumination to see by. The air was clean and fresh, as if the ventilation systems had been running for millions of years without interruption. "How far down does this go?" Kate asked, her voice echoing in the narrow space. "Deep enough to survive planetary bombardment," Rodriguez replied in Jake's mind. This facility was built to outlast the destruction of civilizations. Grant's soldiers moved cautiously through the tunnel, their weapons ready for any threat. But Jake somehow knew they were safe here. The outpost recognized the armor, recognized him as authorized personnel. After what felt like hours of walking, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Jake stopped breathing for a moment as he took in the sight before him. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Ancient buildings rose from the floor like crystalline trees, their surfaces covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen in the tunnel. "My God," Grant whispered. "How old is this place?" 12 million years, Rodriguez answered through. Jake, built during the height of the original human empire, before the First Hegemony War. Jake walked toward the center of the chamber, drawn by something he could not explain. The armor systems were responding to the environment, downloading information and accessing databases that had been dormant for eons. "There," Rodriguez said, directing Jake's attention to a raised platform in the center of the chamber. The command center. The platform was surrounded by what looked like control panels, but instead of buttons or screens, they were covered in the same glowing symbols. Jake approached cautiously, feeling the armor system syncing with the ancient technology. "Place your hand on the central console," Rodriguez instructed. Jake did as he was told. and immediately the entire chamber came to life. Lights blazed along the walls, ancient computers hummed with power, and holographic displays materialized in the air around them. The symbols on the walls pulsed with increasing brightness, as if the facility was waking up after a long sleep. "Welcome to Outpost Omega," a new voice said, speaking from speakers hidden throughout the chamber. "Primary systems online. Defense grid activating." "Defense grid?" Jake asked. "Look up," Bishop said, pointing toward the ceiling of the chamber. High above them, Jake could see massive gun turrets emerging from hidden compartments in the rock. Energy began to build in their barrel assemblies, creating a low, humming sound that vibrated through the floor. "Incoming hegemony fleet detected," the outpost's computer announced. "Deploying surface weapons." Through the armor's enhanced senses, Jake could feel the planet's surface far above them. He could sense the approaching alien ships, dozens of them, moving into attack formation around Kepler 442b. The largest ship was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. "That's Sectar's flagship," Grant said, reading her scanner. "He's the hegemony's most feared hunter. If he's here personally, they really want that armor." "Who is Sectar?" Jake asked. "A monster," Bishop replied grimly. "He's been hunting down human survivors for thousands of years. Amy and I fought him once before. Barely escaped with our lives." "Contact established with hostile fleet," the outpost announced. "Incoming transmission." A holographic image appeared in the center of the command platform. It showed an alien figure that made Jake's skin crawl. Sectar was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and forearms ending in razor-sharp claws. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "Humans," Sectar said, the word dripping with contempt. "You have something that belongs to the hegemony. Surrender the weapon armor, and your deaths will be swift." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. That armor belonged to Lieutenant Rodriguez. She died fighting for humanity. "Rodriguez," Sectar repeated, and something that might have been a smile crossed his alien features. "Yes, I remember her. She died screaming." Bishop stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "You lying piece of alien filth. Amy died like a hero." "Perhaps," Sectar replied, "but she died nonetheless. As will all of you. You have 1 hour to surrender the armor. After that, I will reduce this pathetic world to ash." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in tense silence. "Can we fight them?" Jake asked. "Analyzing hegemony fleet composition," Rodriguez said in his mind. 47 ships, including the flagship. Our chances of victory are approximately 15%. "That's not very encouraging," Kate said. "Actually, it's better odds than we've had in years," Grant replied. "Jake, what can this outpost do?" Jake placed his hands on the control console, again allowing the armor to interface fully with the ancient systems. Information flooded his mind: weapon specifications, defensive capabilities, and most importantly, the location of other hidden outposts throughout human space. "There are 12 other facilities like this one," Jake announced, "and they're all still active. Can we contact them?" Grant asked. "Already done," Rodriguez replied through Jake. "Sending activation codes now." Across the galaxy, ancient human outposts that had been hidden for millions of years began to wake up. Their defensive systems came online, their weapons charged, and their communication arrays reached out to coordinate with each other. "Fleet approaching atmosphere," the outpost computer announced. "Surface weapons engaging." Far above them, energy. Beams erupted from hidden positions all across the junkyard. The beams struck the lead hegemony ships, destroying several immediately and sending others spinning out of control. But there were too many of them, and they quickly adapted their formation to minimize the damage. "They're landing ground forces," Grant reported, checking her scanner. Thousands of them. Let them come, Jake said, surprising himself with his confidence. This facility has defenses they can't imagine. As if responding to his words, the chamber filled with the sound of ancient machinery activating. Through the floor, Jake could feel massive weapons systems coming online, automated defenses that had been waiting millions of years for this moment. Sektar is leading the ground assault personally, Bishop observed. He wants that armor badly. Enough to risk himself. Then let's give him what he wants, Jake said grimly. The battle for the surface raged for hours. Hegemony ground forces poured from their landing ships, only to be met by automated defense turrets and energy barriers that appeared from seemingly empty ground. The junkyard had become a fortress, with every piece of scrap metal serving as cover for hidden weapons. But slowly, inevitably, the alien forces began to push deeper into the facility's outer defenses. Sektar was as dangerous as his reputation suggested, personally destroying several of the outpost's heavy weapons with some kind of energy sword. He's getting close to the entrance tunnel, Grant reported. We need to seal it. No, Jake said, firmly. Let him come. Jake, you can't fight him alone, Kate protested. I won't be alone, Jake replied, feeling Rodriguez's presence stronger than ever in his mind. I'll have Amy with me. Jake walked to the tunnel entrance and waited. He could hear the sounds of battle getting closer, energy weapons firing, metal being torn apart, and the inhuman roars of alien warriors. Finally, Sektar appeared at the tunnel mouth, his forearms spread wide and his black eyes fixed on Jake. The last human with the ancient weapon, Sektar said, stalking into the chamber. You will die as your ancestors did, begging for mercy. My ancestors didn't beg, Jake replied, the armor systems charging to full power. And neither will I. The fight was brutal and fast. Sektar was incredibly quick, his forearms allowing him to attack from multiple angles at once. But Jake had the armor's enhanced reflexes and Rodriguez's combat experience guiding his movements. Energy blasts filled the air as the two combatants circled each other in the ancient chamber. You fight well for a primitive, Sektar admitted, dodging one of Jake's attacks. But you cannot win. The hegemony has destroyed countless worlds. Your species is nothing special. You're wrong, Jake said, landing a solid hit on Sektar's shoulder. Humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We fight until our last breath. Then breathe your last, Sektar snarled, raising his energy sword for a killing blow. But Jake was ready. Using the armor's full power, he grabbed Sektar's sword arm and activated the energy discharge system Rodriguez had shown him. Electricity coursed through both combatants, but the armor protected Jake while Sektar convulsed in agony. The alien hunter fell to the ground, defeated but still breathing. It's over, Jake said, standing over his fallen enemy. No, Sektar gasped. The hegemony is eternal. Others will come. Let them come, Jake replied. Humanity is awake now. We remember who we are and where we came from, and we'll be ready. As if to emphasize his point, reports began flooding in from the other activated outposts. All across human space, ancient defensive systems were coming online. Ships that had been hidden for millions of years were launching, carrying weapons and technology that the hegemony had thought lost forever. The tide of the war had finally turned. Jake looked around the ancient chamber at his friends and allies. Kate was safe. Bishop had found a new purpose, and Grant was already planning the counterattack that would drive the hegemony from human space.